All right, y'all, back in my traditional garb here. In new location inside because I've got the house all to myself. The wife and little ones are out and about, and I got home from work a little bit early. Taking advantage of that, and we're going to do a quick beer review. Another from my stash that made its way down from Wisconsin, labeled, I'm not going to tip it over because I see it looks like this has been bottle conditioned, so I'm not going to tip it. BZS 670. So this is from Josh Secaur. It is what he calls the Brettzacca Saison. A Brett Saison with azacca. Basic Saison fermented with WLP 670, which is the American farmhouse yeast. And he says, just to make Ryan, Mr. Homebrew, drool, this has a big azacca addition in the whirlpool. So a Brett Saison with azacca as a late addition. Now, Brett Saisons are honestly one of my favorite styles of beer out there. So I am incredibly pumped to get into this. Just in case I mess it up on the pour, this thing is looking ridiculously clear. So if some of this stuff comes up from the bottom, I don't want that to cloud the brilliant nature of how it looks in the bottle. Here we go. Woo! It's coming up a little. It wasn't going to jump out of the glass, but it was going to be lively. Wow. A nice, really light straw color. I got a couple floaties in there, but not much. Do the Homebrew tap, because I'm struggling with dirty glass here. Really, really light straw color. It actually is darker there in the camera than it does here. Wow, that's pretty. So it's got kind of a light. A lot of my Brett Saisons and even some of my sours fall on the same lines. At times, you can struggle to get a really nice, thick head on it. Oh, you can smell just a little bit of breadiness on the nose, a little funk. So there's definitely a decent carb in there, but it's not holding up the head. So, like I said, that happens to me quite a bit. You know what's crazy, though? So I get the Brett, but I get some of the same aromas that I get off of one of my dry hopped lambic styles, my dry hopped apricot lambic. It's got that same nose to it. It's really hard to describe, but that's what I can relate it to. Sorry, it's not a good descriptor at all. It's got a really cool nose to it, a little bit of Brett. So we get a little swirl up. Oh, but it's enticing. Let's go in. Cheers. Ooh. That's really good. It's nothing crazy, which is actually really good. Sometimes I've had my Brett Saisons go all over the board. Sometimes we'll get super funky. A lot of it depends on Brett strain. A lot of it depends on Brett strain and the time you give it. It's different circumstances. This has a really underlying nice essence of a Saison, so you can tell that that was the base style. A lot of times I've entered in Brett Saisons into competitions before, and I get dinged. Oh, this is coming up. Nice little pillowy head there. All it took was a little tender love and care. I get dinged in competitions because mine get so funky sometimes that that you can't really identify it as a Saison, as the base. It wipes out any subtleties. This does not do that. It's really nice. I'm trying to reach. It reminds me so much of a commercial Brett Saison. And maybe it's not a Brett Saison. You know what it reminds me of, and this is a big time compliment. It reminds me of Tank 7 from Boulevard. With a hint of Brett. And I think that may be what it is, because Boulevard puts out a Brett Saison. Maybe that's what I'm getting. I really, really like this beer. I'm being terrible at descriptors as much as I love this style. You can be so all over the map, and the flavors are... It's not really funky. You don't get like the horse blanket to it that is a common descriptor. But you can tell it's there. It has a nice, like... Gosh, that's hard to put my tongue on. What? It's hard. It's hard to articulate. Oh, it's so nice. It's uplifting. It's got an uplifting, ever so slight funk to it. It really brings it makes the entire beer really, really refreshing. This thing's 5.5% alcohol. It tastes like less as far as alcohol. It's got good body though, which you can tend to lose in some of the Brett Saisons that get so dry. I think that's what it is. I think it reminds me of a Boulevard Brett Saison. The one with the kind of the green label and on the 750. It's like the Take 7 with Brett. That's what it is. Man, I am seriously enjoying this. I'd be interested. Shoot me a comment below, Josh, and let me know how old this is. It may be that it's not super old, and that's why it's not super funky. But I want to make something very similar to this, because I let so many of my Brett Saisons go 6 to 8 months before I touch them, that in some capacity, a lot of times I lose this refreshing nature that Brett can bring to a Saison while keeping that Saison character. So let me know how old this is. It's fantastic. It's got just enough. The carbonation's great. After all, after that initial pour, maybe it was a terrible pour, but and beautifully clear. You can taste the azacca just a little bit in there. I get more on the nose of the azacca than I do on the taste. But it's there ever so slightly in the flavor as well. But it's just a hint of kind of fruitiness. Brilliant, dude. Brilliant beer. I love it. Phenomenal. As always. Josh Secaur. Go check him out. Cheers, brother. Thank you. Cheers. Y'all have a good night.